Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video we are going to learn how to cut a reversible bucket hat. If this is something that interests you, make sure you watch this video to the end. Give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. So here are the two fabric I'll be using. I have two Ankara fabrics here, and that is what I'm going to use for the reversible bucket hat. So I'm going to be using my pattern paper. You can definitely draft this directly on your fabric. So my round edge measurement is 22.5. okay, so now to determine the crown, okay, so what I'm going to do now is to divide my round edge divided by 6.28, and what I have is 3.6. so I'm going to fold this paper into 4, and then you mark that 3.6 around. After marking the 3.6 around, also add half an inch sewing allowance to it, and then you have a full circle. And I'm going to label this the crown. Okay, this is going to be the crown. So the next thing is to cut out the band, and we are going to use our round edge measurement as the band. Like I said, my round edge measurement is 22.5. okay, so since this paper is on fold, I'm going to mark half of it on the pattern paper. So what I did was to mark half an inch away first, because I will need a half an inch as sewing allowance, and then I'm going to mark half of my round edge measurement here. Okay, I'll mark it up to this place as well, and then I'm going to mark the height of that band, and I'm using 3 inches. Go ahead and mark the 3 inches like so, and then rule the mark. Okay, so I'm going to rule the marks together. So after that, I'm going to add joining allowance to the top here and also to this side here. Remember, there is sewing allowance at the lower part already, okay, which I marked first before taking the marks. Okay, go ahead and mark it out like this. So I have added sewing allowance all around here. Note that the other side is on fold. So I'll go ahead now and cut this out. Cutting this out, I'm going to label this the band. You can also label it the body. Okay, now to cut out the brim is going to be a half circle, and the radius of a half circle is 3.14. so my round edge measurement is 22.5, and you're going to divide it by 3.14, and what I have is 7.1. make sure your paper or your fabric is on fold, and then I'm going to mark that 7.1 all around this place. So after marking the 7.1, I'm going to mark how wide I want the brim to be, and I'm using 4 inches. You can use from 3 inches to 4 inches. So after marking the 4 inches around, I'm going to mark sewing allowance to the top, okay, to the top here, and also to the lower part here. And note that one side of this brim is folded, is going to be on fold, while the other part is you are going to join it. So the other part you're going to join, I forgot to add half an inch sewing allowance there. So when you're cutting yours, make sure you add half an inch sewing allowance there. Okay, so here are my crown, the band, and the brim. So I'll go ahead and cut this out on the fabric. So after cutting it out on the fabric, this is what I have. So I'll go and iron my stay on one of the fabric, while the other fabric I'm not going to iron. I'm not going to add any stay to it. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is to notch the center of my brim. Okay, so here at the fabric, I've ironed my paper stay on them. So, and I've also attached the half an inch join allowance I forgot to cut out when I was cutting the pattern. So I have to add it back to this so that it won't make my hat, it will make it tight. So I've notched the center part of the brim and the center part of the band. So you go ahead and sew it like this. The radius part of the brim is where you're going to join to the band. Okay, so once you sew it to the end here, go ahead and sew it again from the notch part to the end, so that you are sure that all the sides match up with each other. So once you are done sewing, you should have something like this. So the next thing is to notch this place. Okay, notch it. So I'll also notch my crown as well. You place it together like in you fold it into 4 so that you can notch the center. So the notch part of that crown, place it to the notch parts of the other side of the band, and go ahead and sew it all the way like this. Okay, so once you get to the other notch part of this crown, you are going to stop. You won't sew all to that part. Go ahead and continue from the other side again, and then you stop at the notch part on that other side as well. Okay, when you do this, it will allow us to know if you have excess, so that you can easily cut off the excess either for the crown or for the band. So if the crown seems to be bigger, all you need to do is to trim off the allowance. That means you had plenty allowance if the crown is now more than the band. Okay, so right here now I'm going to take in the allowance, the remaining allowance here. You can see that I've chalked it out, so I will sew it all the way down. So after sewing it all the way down, go ahead and trim off the excess, and then you sew it back. You sew the crown back to the band. Okay, the part which is opened, sew it back to the crown, and then go ahead and notch it all around. This is very easy to join. Okay, it's very easy. If the crown looks too big, go ahead and loosen it and then recut the crown again. Just reduce the length of the crown. That means the allowance you added is too much. So right here, you're going to place the side which has the seam on each part of the cap. Okay, place it on top of each other. I've joined my lining, the part which is going to serve as the lining. I've joined it, match it up with each other. You're also going to notch the brim as well, both the lining and the main fabric. Make sure the notch part matches with each other, and the side seam allowance part also matches with each other. If one tends to be bigger than the other, just sew it back. So I left 2 inches opening, okay, so that I can use it to turn the cap out. And make sure you also notch where you have the seam. So I'm going to be turning this out from the 2 inches opening I left around there. So this is what I have after turning it out. You can go ahead and iron it at this stage, but as at the time when I was making this, there was no light, so I'm going to iron it later. So that part that you have opened, you have to sew it. So I'm going to take a stitch all around the all around this place. Okay, I'll take a stitch. So after taking the stitch all around, I want to have like a stitch design, like a style line around the cap. So I'm going to be creating a style line, and it's going to be about half-inch interval. There's going to be an half-inch interval in between them. Okay, so you keep sewing them till you finish all of the style lines. Okay, this is how you're going to be sewing it, and you're going to be leaving about half-an-inch interval. So this is what I have after sewing it together. You can see how beautiful this is looking right now. So thank you for watching this video to the end. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you do, give this video a thumbs up so that YouTube can recommend my video to other viewers, and make sure you subscribe to my channel. Okay, so I'm going to see you guys in my next tutorial. Bye.